what's up YouTube? You're tuned back into Healthy Habits with The Haven. My name is Jaylyn, I'm a preventionist at Tri-Valley Haven, and I'm here with my partner Lacey, sexual assault advocate, preventionist, and all-around CSEC extraordinaire. Today we'll be talking about youth empowerment and activism. Let's get started. Alright, so Lacey, since we are talking about youth empowerment today, let's get a little bit of background on that. Can you give me a good definition? What is empowerment and what does it mean to feel empowered?
Of course. So when we talk about empowerment, or when an individual feels empowered, it's when you give that individual the power to do something and them knowing they have it in them to do it. For example, they want to be in charge of themselves, so you're giving them that choice. You're giving them that option. They also want to feel as an individual, they're allowing themselves to follow their own hearts. So it's so much as being empowered, I can choose to do what I want, and I know I'm going to support myself in it. It's what I want. It's what drives my motivation. Also, when you feel empowered, you have a sense of being. You feel safe, you feel secure, and you are pretty much true to the person of your own being, to yourself. You're true to who you are and what you do. And it's also about being true, not just to yourself, but to someone else around you or the individuals around you. So it's what you believe you are, not just within yourself, but what you live by in your surroundings.
So you just talked about how being true to yourself is a key part of empowerment. During puberty and adolescence, that's a really hard time where youth are starting to discover themselves and find their own voice. So can you tell us, what are some ways that youth can embrace and utilize their voice?
So that's a good question, and that's a good point. When we talk about youth and how they can empower themselves or utilize their voice, we want to give them an ownership in shaping their environments. So this can be allowing them to own their own feelings and build their own positive environment. Choosing their own positive friends, maybe choosing what they want to do in school, whether it's academics or sports, allowing them to have that power. You also want to get the youth involved in their communities. One great way for youth to use their voice and utilize their voice is becoming a part of what we call a Youth Advisory Commission. Here in the Tri-Valley, we have Livermore, Pleasanton, and Dublin. And all three cities actually offer a youth advisory committee where the youth can actually be involved in the the council members' meetings and have their own choice and their own voice and put what their needs may be and bring it into the council meeting with them and let them talk about it, what's needed in the community, maybe what's needed for sports or anything of those matters. Also, you want to help the youth build core values within themselves. What I like to say is we like to help the youth catch waves. So you want to make sure the youth have understanding that the youth is a way of life. The youth here in our community have their own environment, their own sense of community, and you have to understand and accept youth for who they are. You also want to understand that, like all youth, they're going to have attitude, and you want them to own that attitude. You want them to know what's in it for them and what they're going to get out of this for them. You also want to talk with today's technology and youth. We want to keep in mind that they're very verbal, they're very video, and they're very visual. So they're very in tune to the social media aspect, they're very in tuned into the technology aspect. You also want to make sure they have the education. You want to be sure to explain the purpose of the why. So why should they be involved? What is them being involved going to do for them? Why is the education behind it important of why the youth is involved? And you also want them to know that style matters. When it comes to it, youth have their own style, their own uniqueness, and you want to be able to give them that freely. You want them to be able to express themselves. And as we allow them to be themselves and express themselves, they'll build off of that, empowering themselves to become involved more. You also want to engage them into maybe some of the nonprofits around the community. Get involved in the organizations that advocate for something that the youth stand for. For example, with Tri-Valley Haven, being that we are a domestic violence and sexual assault organization, we like to introduce ways the youth can get involved in the community and kind of give them that branch. Last May, we actually did what was called a Hot Cocoa and a Healthy Relationships program, where we invited the youth around our community to come out, get involved, to learn about what we do, who we are, and see if there's any way they could volunteer. And then the last and most importantly, you want to know, you want to let the youth know how to make their voice heard. You want to be able to have them focus on a specific issue, maybe educate themselves on the issue, and when they want to stand for that issue, they can now call that issue, call it to action. So now that you've educated and you've learned about violence or learned about empowering yourself, you can take what you've learned and build it into your action plan. Now you can step forth this action with the youth, as well as reflect and repeat it for multiple actions and multiple empowerments. So now that we had discussed the different ways that youth can be involved in embracing and utilizing their voice, let's go ahead and talk about why it's important that the youth do get involved. Jaylyn?
That's a good question. So, youth are an important part of our society, especially when it comes to activism and movements. They have the energy and creativity that we need to create new movements, continue old movements, and even redesign movements for the future. They innovate and they notice changes that need to be made in order for a better tomorrow. Because how else can we make those innovations if we don't first notice what's not working? So, movements like the Civil Rights Movement, Me Too, period, the Flint water crisis, Black Lives Matter, United We Dream. These are all movements that have made an impact on the lives of millions in the United States due to the activism of youth. And without someone to pass on those efforts, the movements die. Youth also have voices, opinions, and ideas that need to be heard. They're intelligent. They have meaningful contributions that to be made to society. Age isn't a deciding factor when it comes to wisdom or knowledge. And there's a lot to be learned about those who are going to inherit the world, after the older generations have passed. They bring new perspectives to problems that make their viewpoint all the more valuable. And also, youth develop and pass on new skills to older and also current generations. So think to the past, 15 years ago, like social media influencers, that wasn't a thing. You couldn't have a job on YouTube or on the internet and stuff like that. Youth have mastered these skills because social media is a tool that's not easy to master. And they've mastered it and created a completely new industry that can provide income, advertise products, and even connect with other people and bring awareness to social issues. Without the youth to teach others who haven't grown up with technology or social media, these skills would have never been utilized. And also, getting involved gives youth a chance to leave a mark on the world long after they've gone, but also to build a foundation that they can develop on through adulthood.
Thank you for explaining to us a little bit about the activism that youth get involved in. My next question to you would be, how can youth get involved in the movement to end violence or any other movement against oppression?
Well, there's a variety of ways that youth can get involved. There's active or kind of passive involvement within these movements. So active involvement can look like, volunteering at a local domestic violence shelter, joining a youth-led protest. So just like the Never Again movement was kind of supporting the Parkland shooting, the Black Lives Matter youth movement, the Dreamers, was supporting the DREAM Act, Development Relief and Education for Alien Minors Act, also protests for immigration rights. And it can also be more passive, so doing a social media press involvement, becoming part of a public awareness campaign, such as ones for Sexual Assault Awareness Month, Domestic Violence Awareness Month, Homeless Youth Awareness Month, and also advocating for others and themselves, but also educating themselves and others about violence. All right, and that's a wrap. Thanks for watching another episode of Healthy Habits with The Haven. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube page. Also, go give us a follow on our Instagram and TikTok. Follow our handle at Tri-Valley Haven. Tune in next time.